Pro Football Playbook, presented by the Pigskin Podcast Network, your source for team news, draft needs, player profiles and rankings, full Senior Bowl, Combine, and NFL draft coverage, news, analysis, discussion. It's in the playbook. Now, here is your host, sports journalist Bill Alvstad, and featured analyst Keith Myers. Hey everybody, welcome into the Pro Football Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with Mr. Keith Myers. Keith, welcome in.
Yeah, we are 1 week away from the end of the NFL season.
We are.
It feels like this season just started.
But it's 1 week longer.
It is. It's weird because it feels like a very short season for us, even though it's the longest season ever.
So we're talking playoffs today. So this is our kind of our wrap up playoff, like who's in, who's out show. We pretty much know the large chunk of who's in and who's going to be playing who and where the seating lies. There's a few games that will dictate a couple of spots, and really that's it. So we'll talk about those things. Let's start in the AFC. We know that the Tennessee Titans are in. They can clinch their division with a win over Houston. If they lose, Kansas City has a chance, if they win, to jump them and get that bye.
So you mean they've already clinched the division? You mean clinch the number one spot?
Clinch the number one spot. Correct. Sorry.
So the Titans would have to lose to the Texans, and the Chiefs have to beat the Broncos. I expect both those teams to win, and easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the Titans to lose the number one spot, they have to lose to the lowly Texans, and
right.
That seems unlikely.
And last week, I think the most devastating game in the league was the Kansas City Chiefs dropping that game to the Cincinnati Bengals. And that really cost them. Because that was their chance to get that first round bye, and that loss really kind of made it very difficult for them to climb back up. So
it does show you how far the Bengals have come, because
Joe Burrow, dude,
he's a star.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great story for a player to come back from a devastating injury. And that rookie campaign never even got started, and to come back at this level and have the finish that he is having to his season to close this out for that team to get into the playoffs for the first time in quite a while. And they haven't won a game in ages in the playoffs. And so to see them do well, I think it's awesome, actually.
So, and Cincinnati's got the 3 seed locked up pretty much. They would have to lose to the Browns without Baker Mayfield, because Baker Mayfield has announced that he's going to have surgery on that shoulder that's been bothering him all year.
They do have a chance. They have a chance to get that 1 seed, though.
To get
the Chiefs and the Titans lose.
If the Chiefs and Titans both lose,
yes,
and the
they
Bengals
beat Cleveland,
and the Bengals beat Cleveland, they can jump all the way to the 1 seed.
What a story that would be.
I expect all 3 of those teams to win.
That would be an 11-win number 1 seed, by the way, which would be kind of interesting.
So, but they're playing the Browns with their back, and the Browns will have their backup quarterback. That gets them the 3 seed. They can move up if the Chiefs or Titans lose.
Yeah, I don't expect either team. There's just too much on the line for both those teams to continue to want to win.
The Bills are in the 4 seed. They can clinch that and win the division and have that home playoff game by beating the lowly Jets. The Jets are bad, so that likely to happen. I believe the Bills can also move up and take over the 1 seed if all.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe
all 3. If the Titans, Chiefs, and Bengals all lose, then that would create again a 3-way tie at for the number 1.
Interesting, but doesn't Buffalo still have the split against the Patriots?
They have the tiebreaker over the Patriots.
They have the tiebreaker. Okay, got it.
So a win and the Bills win the division, and so you could create a 3-way tie. Now, if you create a 4-way tie by having the Titans, Chiefs, Bengals, and Bills all win, I believe, or sorry,
Or lose.
all tied. So you have the Titans and Chiefs lose, the Bengals and Bills both win. I believe the Bengals end up in the number 1 seed, which
interesting. Yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of weirdness there, but the truth is you've got 4 good teams playing 4 really bad teams, with the exception of the Chiefs playing the Broncos.
Yeah.
They're a bad team, but not a really bad team. And so I expect.
And then the 5th seed Patriots are almost locked in, and they're playing Miami. So there's another game where it's pretty much a done deal. Indianapolis Colts finish out on that 6th seed
playing the Jaguars.
Yep. And then you've got the game, one of the games of the week.
Yeah.
The Chargers visiting the Raiders. To winner takes all. This is a playoff game. This is a playoff game.
Teams. Yep, because the winner of that game takes the 7 seed and maybe the 6 seed, but only if the Colts lose to the Jaguars.
I think if it's okay.
And then but it's pretty much they're going to take the 7 seed. And the loser is out. The loser does not make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's brutal. But that's why we play the games.
Yep.
That's and this is why this is interesting for the Raiders. Because the Chargers, they're kind of the up and coming team. Everyone wants to see them kind of do well. Quarterback is awesome. Blah 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 blah. You've got the Raiders having one of the hardest seasons, I think, of any team in the National Football League this season. Overcoming a lot of adversity just to get to this moment, and we'll see what the character is made of, because that's what it really comes down to in this game.
Technically, the Steelers and Ravens have not been eliminated.
Technically, but they need a lot of help.
Here's what they need: they need the Chargers and Raiders to play to a tie.
Oh yeah, right.
If the Chargers and Raiders play to a tie, either the Steelers or the Ravens can get in, and those 2 teams are playing each other. So the winner of that game, would get in as the 7th seed.
That would be crazy. Has there been one tie this year?
Yep.
Out of how many games played?
A lot.
100, 150, 175 games or whatever.
Okay. One
so
tie.
How about, why don't we flip it over to the NFC? We'll talk about the NFC, and then we can talk about potential matchups.
Yep.
That we'll see in the first round.
The NFC is also kind of locked in. You got the Packers, who have clinched the number 1 seed. They cannot lose it. So even if they lose against the lowly Lions, they're there. And then you've got 2 teams at 12-4 that cannot overtake the Packers. They can hurt themselves in terms of playoff seeding. The Rams play the 49ers.
Yeah.
Buccaneers play the Panthers. Right now,
so depending on that Arizona game,
yep.
The Rams could still take the division.
No, the Rams are the number 2.
Well, I mean, if they lose, even.
Oh yeah, if the Rams lose, they can still win the division if Arizona has a loss or tie to Seattle.
Wow.
But they would fall to the 3 seed if they lose but they still win the division.
And Tampa would come up.
And Tampa would go up to the 2. If the Rams lose and Arizona wins, the Rams would drop to the 5 seed.
Yes.
And Arizona
there's still stuff to play for. You know.
So
the Rams need to go into San Francisco and
take care of business.
Finish.
Yep. And San Francisco will be playing without Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, but you know what? That's a better game for them, I think, because just of the nature of the Rams not being able to prepare for that, and the 49ers kind of have the Rams number a little bit.
They do. It's one of those it's a weird coaching thing that you see out in the NFC West, where the 49ers and Shanahan have Sean McVay's number. They just do. The Rams are clearly the better team, but the 49ers just have a way of beating the Rams repeatedly. In the same way that the Rams beat Seattle repeatedly, even
Right.
though like this year, Seattle, they're the better team. Seattle's not as good. But in past years, when Seattle was the better team, the Rams just had a way of, Sean McVay just has Pete Carroll's number. And then Pete Carroll has Shanahan's number, where the Seahawks, even this year where the Seahawks are bad and the 49ers have been, okay, not as bad, but, middling. The Seahawks swept the 49ers and did so in convincing fashion in both games. So it's a weird little like coaching carousel as far as what's going on with those three teams. So it's not a given that the Rams are going to beat the 49ers, even though the Rams are a far better team than the 49ers. But it's just, there's something about Shanahan and McVay that just, I expect the Rams to win, but it's not as simple as it should be.
Probably not. How about Tampa Bay Buccaneers? What do you think? 12-4 going in and playing last games against Carolina seems like a gimme to me. But who knows?
It is. So for Tampa, it's an opportunity. There's not as much to play for. I mean, because they can't overtake the Rams without help. They can't overtake the Packers at all, and they don't really need to worry.
Those are late afternoon games, so they might know their results early in the day, and
they don't need to worry about.
They won't know their results.
They don't need to worry about fending off the Cowboys, because a win by the Cowboys and a loss by Tampa puts them both at 12-5, and Tampa's got the tiebreaker. So they will finish no worse than the 3 seed, and so there is not a lot for them to play for other than kind of a get right game, because they've got to figure out what's going on, because Godwin's out. Brown is no longer a member of the team. They may or may not get Fournette back in time for the first round of the playoffs. And yeah, I mean, it's a situation where they need to figure out where their offense is going to come from. But I would actually,
they had a narrow victory against the Jets. I mean, it wasn't convincing. So,
no, they were beat in that game if the Jets didn't just hand it to them at the very end. That the end of the play call at the end, where you leave, you go basically zero coverage and you leave people on islands at the end of the game when all you need is not to give up a touchdown. And they gave Tampa every opportunity to go get the touchdown with a play call. That almost felt like a, hey, let's protect our draft position play. They come away with it thinking, okay, we would have won this game if we wanted it, but we didn't want it. And that's, I know the coaches will never admit that, and I doubt it's true. But that's what it felt like watching the game. It really felt like the Jets were like, okay, we won this game, but we don't want to lose our draft position.
So what did you think about the Arizona Cardinals at Dallas Cowboys last week? And Cowboys kind of missed their opportunity at the shot, at least at the number 1 seed.
Yep.
With Sunday's loss to Arizona. They're still in the AFC East winners, so they're going to be 1 through 4, currently at 4. Do they have a chance to move at all?
No, they won't be moving up. They won't be moving down. They're the 4 seed. And so because the best they can do is 12-5.
They're one of the teams then that should rest people. They're playing Philadelphia.
Yep.
They're in.
Yep.
As the 7th seed. They're a lock actually in the playoffs, but they just don't know if they're going to be 7th or 6th seed based on the 49er game.
Yeah. Because the 49ers could be in as the 6th, or they could be out of the playoffs, and
if they lose, and the Saints could come up and get the 7th seed. Yep.
And if they lose and the Saints win, we need both of those. Then the Saints come up into the 7th seed, and the Eagles bounce to the 6th. But the Eagles have made the playoffs; they're in.
Yeah, so they don't really have anything to play for either.
No.
So that Dallas Philadelphia game could be a snoozer. How about the Cardinals and the Seahawks? Cardinals are the 5th seed, first wild card setting there. So
yeah, and they're 2 games up on either of the other teams that are going to make the playoffs. They're not losing that 5th seed. Like I said, technically they can
still clinch the West.
They can jump from the 5 seed to the 4 seed by beating Seattle and having the 49ers beat the Rams. But then
what would that do to the Cowboys? Because right now, if you take a look at kind of the early playoff matchups, it looks like it's the Cardinals Cowboys rematch.
Yes, it is.
That looks kind of interesting. I mean, we can talk about that a little bit more in a minute as soon as we finish this discussion.
So,
but
I mean, that's the only way the Cowboys move up is if the Rams move all the way down to 5 and Arizona jumps up into 4. If you are Arizona, do you want yes, you'll be playing at home, but would you rather play the Cowboys who you just beat on the road or the Rams at home, knowing that the Rams have beat you twice and done so kind of convincingly both times?
Man, I don't know. Playing at home in the playoffs is always the way to go.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I just question myself even after I just said that out loud, because that really hasn't necessarily been true in the last couple of years. We've seen a lot of road victories in playoff games, especially in the wild card round.
So for Arizona, I mean that's really the.
You said you watched a little bit of that Dallas Cowboy Arizona game. I mean, do you think they could go in and repeat that?
No, and here's why. Dallas played that game, in my opinion, as if they were playing a team that they knew they were going to be playing 2 weeks later in the playoffs. Because
vanilla.
Yeah, I mean it was basically a preview of week 1 of the playoffs. It's going to be the Cowboys versus Arizona. It's really hard to see any other situation work out there. Like I said, you would need this Cardinal Rams swap, which pushes Arizona up to 4, the Rams down to 5, and the Cowboys up to 3, in order to not get the Cowboys and Arizona. That's really the only way that you don't have that matchup. So the Cardinals needed that win. They have to try and keep the division in play. So the Cardinals came in with a lot of different wrinkles in what they do. They really went and had a game plan that was, hey, we have to go win this game. And the Cowboys appeared to come in with a game plan of, we're going to be vanilla and we're not going to do anything interesting. We're not going to show you what we're going to do 2 weeks from now. We're not going to give you anything. And then in the fourth quarter, they were like, you know what, let's not just roll over here. And they kind of threw some of that out, and they went to, up tempo and actually, threw the ball around a little bit. But man, the Cowboys, from a play calling and scheme perspective, were really boring for 3 quarters.
Interesting.
It really looked like they were trying not to give Arizona any clues, any details of what they were going to do in the playoffs. That's what it felt like.
So we've talked about all the games. Mm-hmm. So the way I see it, so let's go with the AFC again. So we know the Titans are in, Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, Patriots, Colts. The only question mark is it going to be the Chargers or the Raiders?
Yep.
So and that situation, those teams are all locked in. There might be a couple of variables there where teams swap spots as far as seeding.
But even then, you look at who the teams are playing.
Yeah. And we'll cover that in a half second.
I would say it's a lot of, we've kind of already covered it. It's a lot of good teams playing bad teams.
Oh, you mean this week?
In this week. So the likelihood of any swapping around of spots other than 7 and 8, right? The last team in and the first team not in, is very unlikely. That one appears to be locked in.
In the NFC, you've got the Packers, and they've got the bye. So you got the Rams, Bucks, Cowboys, Cardinals, 49ers, Eagles. And the only variable there is if the 49ers lose and the Saints beat the Falcons, 49ers are out, Saints are in. That means the Saints would move into the 7th seed and the Eagles would move up to the 6th. Mm-hmm. So that would be the variables on that. Okay, so let's take a look at the potential first-round matchups.
Yep.
Just for fun.
So the Titans are on a bye. And that's pretty much set. Unless they lose to the Texans, which you and I both know that's extremely unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just pretend that happens. So what we've got is we've got the Chiefs taking on the 7 seed,
Yes.
the winner of the Charger Raider game.
So I'm going to say that, just for, Chargers at Chiefs.
Yeah.
That's a decent game for a wild card weekend matchup. I would say
that's a surprising. I mean, what's interesting is the 3 teams involved. It's going to be the Chiefs at home versus one of their division rivals. There's 3 teams. And
this will be the third time they played them in a season, which is always challenging.
Yep. So, and you look at that, and obviously the Chiefs are going to be favored. They're also going to be at home. That helps.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts can score with anyone.
Yes.
Not Colts. The Chargers can
the
score
Chargers,
with anyone.
right. Yeah.
I don't know why I said Colts. The Chargers can score with anyone. And so that's the thing. It's, can their defense stop the Chiefs enough? But the biggest problem for the Chargers from the defense is they can't stop the run. And the Chiefs' strength is, Mahomes in that passing game. So it actually, the Chiefs don't match up as well.
Yeah. Chiefs defense has been playing better, but it's going against a team that does everything that it can to neutralize that defense.
Well, and the other thing is that the defense has been playing better, but they just had the score run up on them by the Bengals. Better is true, but they're coming off it. They're coming off an awful performance.
How about the other games? So the Bills at in the 3rd seed would host the number 6 seed, the Colts.
Actually, it would be Bengals Colts. The Bengals are currently the 3 seed and are likely to stay there.
Okay.
So
I've got it different.
I'm looking at the NFL.com playoff picture, and it's got the Bengals as the 3 seed because they have the tiebreaker over the Bills. So Bengals Colts. I mean, the Bengals are got to be the favorite in that, especially coming off their recent performance. It's their offense. Can the Colts hang? I mean, they've got a good defense and they got a good offensive line, but
Jamar Chase, man, that guy is next level, right?
He is.
That's a tough matchup for the Colts. Now the Colts have a decent defense, and of course their offense is rock 'em, sock 'em, slug 'em, and it's not always fun to watch. But if you really like that kind of football, that team will aggravate somebody like the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be an interesting game to watch as well. How about the final game and those matchups?
The last matchup is Bills Patriots for the 3rd time.
Yes.
And the Patriots upset the Bills when the Bills were in the middle.
And the Bills looked awful.
Yeah, when the Bills were in the middle of their mid-season, we're not sure if they're a good team anymore or not. The Patriots upset the Bills and looked bad. But then a couple of weeks ago, the Bills kind of got right. They've played really well the last few weeks, and including a general thumping of the Patriots, right? A couple of weeks ago. So. And that's when the Bills moved into the lead and kind of clinched the division because they had, they knew they had 2 really easy games after that. So at home against the Patriots a 3rd time.
Yeah.
Coming off a chance when you just smacked them one.
Yeah.
I mean, the one time that the Patriots beat the Bills, it was in
Bill Belichick, dude, on the road in the playoffs.
In the middle of a blizzard, and the Patriots threw 3 passes in the game.
Yeah.
When it wasn't a blizzard and you saw them have to do more than just run the ball and know that their defense combined with the weather was going to keep the score down, they couldn't hang with the Bills. But it's Bill Belichick on the road in the playoffs. I
don't even know what the weather's going to be like, but it's not going to be pretty.
It doesn't matter. Honestly, it's kind of cliche to say it at this point, but Bill Belichick's one of the best coaches in NFL history, one of the best game planners and all of that. Like his ability to come in and
Strategist,
and
yes,
just hurt what you want to do,
yes,
and just take that away from you.
and keep taking it away. You know, a lot of coaches get bored in football and they decide to do other things. They put all these things in the playbook for that game and they just have to work them in. Bill Belichick just finds what's working and he just keeps doing it over and over again until you stop it. And then he goes and he changes.
Then he finds
he weaponizes what he's going to do already in his brain.
Yeah. He's already got the next thing lined up. So he waits for you to stop it because he knows that, okay, at this point, they're keying on something because we've been going to that same thing over and over and over again. And then they finally figured a way to stop it. And now we're going to use that to our advantage because we're going to fake like we're going to continue doing it and do something else. And he's just one step ahead of everybody when it comes to that. I would have a hard time picking against Bill Belichick, but I do believe the Bills are the better team. Yes. And they're playing at home. Yeah. So in that game, I mean, we'll have to see with injuries and COVID and all of that when we get there, but I would pick the Bills in that game.
Okay, let's flip it over to the NFC and just take a look quickly at what those matchups might look like. We know that the Packers are sitting for that first week. So the first game up would be the number 2 Rams against the currently number 7 Eagles.
Yeah. And that's an interesting game because the Eagles running game, I mean, that's what they do. They are one of the best running teams in the NFL. And the Rams defense is built around getting after the passer and playing against teams that want to throw the ball.
Right.
The strength of their team is pass rushing and, Ramsey on the back end covering.
Do they have enough speed, the Rams, on the outside to be able to really slow down a team like the Eagles that does want to take advantage of that? I mean, Leonard Floyd's out there. You got a couple other players. Their safeties are pretty decent. I mean, the Rams have a pretty decent defense, but it's not world-beating, stellar. They give up some yards. They give up some points. They depend on their offense to knock you out. Yep. And the Eagles are kind of built interesting for the Rams. That could be a closer game than advertised.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying I mean, the Rams, their defense is good. It's really good, but it's built more around stopping the pass than stopping the run. And the Eagles are arguably the NFL's best running offense. They're not a great passing offense. So what are you going to do? Are you going to change what you do as the Rams and to try and load up and stop the run? But then you're moving away from your strengths, right? You're moving away from all your pass rushers in order to try and dictate what the other team's going to do. And so it's an interesting matchup, but can the Eagles keep up with the Rams offensively? Even if the Rams struggle to slow the Eagles running game down, it's still a running game versus an elite offense.
So the next matchup is boring no matter which way you look at it. The 49ers at Buccaneers or the Saints at the Buccaneers for the third game. Again, we could have 3 games where the matchups are dictated by the third matchup of the season on these teams. So 49ers or Saints versus Bucs. What do you think? Because the 49ers have a tough slog to stay at the number 6 spot. They've got to beat the Rams, and they've got to, they're in if they beat the Rams. But if they lose, everything rides on the Saints beating the Falcons, and the Saints, who knows what's going to happen there. And the Falcons, they have a lot of pride. And I just don't know what would happen there. That'd be interesting to me.
Yeah, the 49ers have to beat the Rams, and the Rams are the better team there. That's a hard win for San Francisco. Remember, they're going to be without
Trey Lance,
and so Trey Lance is in there, and obviously he's physically gifted, and we know he looks like a guy who's going to be a star down the road. But he'll be making, I believe, his 3rd start
And he beat the Texans, but he beat the Texans. It was a nice win that they had, 23-7 over the Texans.
It's still
and Trey Lance looked decent in that game, enough to build a little bit of confidence for the young guy.
Yeah, but now you're going to put him up against Aaron Donald and
I
Floyd.
know. But you know what? A guy like Trey Lance is a competitor. He didn't get to be, in a first round pick, top 5 first round pick because he couldn't play football.
Oh yeah.
He's a competitor. I mean, he's ready for this moment, I would think. Especially given the fact that he had to sit all year and take a look.
Playing against that particular defense is hard for the best, most experieed quarterback.
But I'm not saying that the 49ers offense is designed to frustrate a player like Aaron Donald. And the 49ers offensive line is not that bad. I think they were ranked 7th overall. Pro Football Focus and ESPN pass blocking win rate combination gave them the 7th best overall protection rate in the league. And they are a dink and dunk team. I don't know about Trey Lance. He might go for a few shots once in a while, but for the most part, those guys are like taking advantage of an aggressive pass rush. That's what the 49ers offense is designed to do. And that's what the Rams do really well. So it'll be interesting to see the chess match there in that game. Okay. And the last game, Cardinals, Cowboys currently, that seems like the likely matchup. You talked about that earlier.
Yeah, it seems almost certain to be a rematch of last week's game, and you're going to see the Cowboys come out with an actual game plan and an actual attempt. So,
what do you think about the 17 weeks schedule this year, the 17 games, and then what do you think about the additional wild card team in each conference?
Well,
and the way it looks like it's kind of lining up.
I don't really have a problem with either.
Do you think that we should go to 18?
No, I didn't
think you like 17. 17 aggravates me. I don't know what something about the odd
numbers
there.
Yeah, because you can't be a 500 team.
And the fact that it just completely disheveled all the records and everything. I don't know.
Yeah,
traditionalist.
There's some of that when you look at the season and you look at the records and the teams that made the playoffs and those that didn't and where those cutoffs are, you're not seeing 7 and 9 teams.
At least not yet.
In there. I mean, you saw that in the old system when one division was really bad. Seattle was, I think, the first one back in 2010, and then one of the NFC East teams made it at 7 and 9, and a couple of years ago, and so you've seen a couple over the years of below 500 teams. But the idea of if you by adding another team in that, now you're going to see more bad teams make it. And this year you don't. I mean, the teams that are you look at who's
the Saints. The NFC, the Saints are the cutoff. They're a 500 team. They're 8-8 currently. If they make the playoffs, they're going to be 9 and 8.
Yeah.
So everyone else is 7 and 9 and lower are officially eliminated.
Yeah, and if you made it a 7-team or sorry a 6-team thing and not have the 7th.
I mean, the only one that's really kind of iffy on the AFC side is the Steelers. They're 7-7-1 right now. They have a slim opportunity to get into the playoffs.
Only if the Chargers and Raiders tie.
You know what I'm saying. So the possibility does exist for an 8-win team to get in the playoffs. Yeah. I think the 7-win team, no, I don't. That's just not going to happen. But an 8-win team could.
Yeah, you could have
at some point.
You could have an 8-8-1
or an 8-9.
Yeah, and at some point that will happen. You're going to have a year where it's just there just aren't enough. There's
and I'm okay with it. I think I'm okay with that, given the structure of the playoffs now. Everything seems to be even. You've got 2 bye teams that are sitting, and then 3 games in each conference. That just seems to line up pretty well. I like that. But
the one thing that I find that I want to see what it looks like, not just this year, but over the next 2 or 3, is having only one team get a bye how much
in
of
the
an
entire NFL
in,
or
in,
in each conference?
in each conference, having only one team in each conference get a bye, how much of an advantage does that end up being? Are we seeing one seeds, even one seeds
That's
that aren't dominant one seeds, like the Titans
right.
this year, right? The Titans are a great example. They're a one seed that never really dominated at any point in the year. If we start seeing that dominant one seeds like the Titans are making the Super Bowl every year, then I am going to want to see them
Interesting.
go to either get rid of the bye altogether or go back to having 2 bye teams and mitigating that huge advantage of being the one seed.
Well, it definitely is a huge advantage, but you can make the argument that they earned it in their conference.
True. But you know what I'm saying is,
should they receive the same advantage as Green Bay, having 2 more wins and clearly probably a more talented team, et cetera?
And they've been the Packers have been dominant, and they're 13-3. They're probably going to end up 14-3 because they're playing the Lions. Even if the Packers don't play anyone because they've clinched anything, they'll probably still beat the Lions.
Right.
The Packers have been a dominant team,
and you could argue the Rams and the Buccaneers are a better team than the Titans, but the Titans now get to rest and they get that advantage. And clearly, 2 wins get you into the Super Bowl, et cetera. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yep, 2 wins gets you into the Super Bowl, and you get to do it on while rested
and at home.
And at home, and you're playing a team
those are huge advantages.
Yeah, so you're
playing the lowest seed that comes to your house.
Yeah, so you're getting a lot of advantages. Whereas when it was 2 teams that had a bye, you were still rested, playing against a team that was coming in, but someone else was getting that exact same advantage.
I think
you had to play them.
Those advantages are pretty steep, but I would argue, that's why you play the games. I mean, that's why the regular season games have consequences, and I think it's good for the fans. It's good for the sport to have competitive games throughout the year where games are on the line for teams that really believe that they're going to have a chance and in the hunt for a Super Bowl bid. When you start a season, there's probably at least 15 teams that think they got a shot. Yeah. And by the time you're done with 6-7 games, you still got 10 teams that think they've got that shot. And so I think it just adds to a more competitive regular season.
I agree. And the point I was going to make is, if you're the Chiefs and you're like, oh man, I can't believe we,
you shouldn't have punted a game against Cincinnati then.
Yeah, but it's not the game against Cincinnati that should bother Chiefs.
True.
It should be the 3 and 4 start.
Yes, exactly. Right.
It should be the 3 and 4 start.
And they will, to a man, admit that, in private conversation.
If you want to, lament that you didn't get the 1 seed, then you can't start 3 and 4. Yeah, at some point you've got to make it happen early in the season, because those games count just as much as the games at the end of the year.
Right.
It's either, those wins and losses count just as much as the ones at the end of the year. You got to make every game count. And I like that. I like that that it works in this. I like the fact that there is a seeding advantage. And so there's something because if you've clinched the playoffs, and it doesn't matter whether you're the 1 seed or the 3 seed, because everyone plays at home and there's no first round bye in any of that, teams will start resting guys 2 or 3 weeks early.
Yeah. And I think there's an advantage too of, you've earned that advantage, A, and B, I think you're favoring the best teams, and those teams, gain, let's just say it's a 20% advantage over, say, the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Titans have a 20% advantage now, a playoff advantage, a win rate advantage to get to the Super Bowl over the Chiefs. I'm okay with that. But if the Chiefs come up and beat the Titans in the AFC Championship game, if that's what it comes down to, then that's just it's a win-win for everyone, and it's a win for the Chiefs, and
it's a win for the NFL. It's a win for the NFL fans just in general. So yeah, I was just say, if you get rid of the first round bye, I think you're encouraging teams to rest a lot of guys in the last 2 or 3 weeks if they've clinched a division, because there's no advantage of being the 1 seed versus the 3. It's like kind of like
other than a specific matchup you're trying to avoid or get.
Yeah, or that kind of stuff. And I like the fact that the way the wild cards are, and especially now with the 7th one, it keeps more teams in it late in the season. And so as a just 2 weeks ago, the list of teams that were still in the hunt was really long.
Yeah, you had only had 5 teams that were out.
Yeah. Just 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I like the fact that it keeps everyone in it, everyone involved. There's only like 5 or 6 teams that knew that there was no chance. And even though there were some that, they hadn't mathematically been eliminated, you knew they were eliminated. Like Washington comes to mind, or Seattle, or the Falcons, some of those teams. There was still just a little tiny glimmer of hope. And so it made those games more interesting. And I think that in the end is what you need. You need something for the teams at the top of the standings to play for. And that's, the first round bye. And you need more of the conference to still be in it and to still be having something to play for, and not be looking ahead at draft position, because this is one of the things that I've always kind of found a little frustrating about the NBA is that teams and players will tell you they don't care if they're the 1 seed or the 4 seed. They get that first round home advantage, and then you go from there. And that's all. So there's not that desire where every game matters. It's like, you know what, you make sure you stay in the top 4 in your conference. You get that home.
Do you think there should be any sort of?
That's all that matters.
Do you think there should be any sort of division advantage, like if you win your division?
Well, there is. If you win your division, you get a home game, and if you don't win your division, you but qualify. You have to go on the road. And I know that there are times when. And this happened. I already mentioned, the 2 times that I can think of where a below 500 team won their division. That's Seattle in 2010 and what is it? The Dallas in 2018, 2017, somewhere in there, where you have below 500 teams that got to have a home playoff game. It's so rare that it happens.
Right. That's true.
Where a single division has 4 really weak teams. I just don't care. Honestly, I don't. And if you don't want to go on the road to play as a wild card team, then go win your division. If you are an 11-6 team having to go on the road to play a 9-8 division winner, and you're like, hey, we were 2 games better than them. You know what? Go win your division. So instead of looking at what the other team that you didn't do, what did you not do? You weren't the best team in your division. Somebody else had a better record than you. Worry about that first. Worry about your division first, and then worry about your playoff opponent. And I think that in I think both of those cases where the below 500 team made the playoff, they went and won a playoff game. Like the game that I'm thinking of in particular is the Seattle beating the Saints, and the Saints were the
Beastquake.
They were coming off a Super Bowl win, and they were, thought of as this great team. Yes. And then people were like, oh, well, if they'd won their division, they would have had a tougher road because they get to go on the road, or, by losing and being a wild card team, they get the lowly 7-9 Seahawks. And you got to admit the Seahawks were bad that year. But
they were surging.
Yeah, but then the Seahawks beat him. And so it's like, okay, you know what? Worry about yourself. Go win your division.
That's true, right there.
Go win your division first, and then worry about it. And if you don't win your division, I don't feel like you deserve a playoff home game just because you've got a slightly better record than a division winner. So I like the way that the system is now. And I know that might be an unpopular opinion because people like to complain about this and that, and they like other, they think they've got other answers. I think that we've got a system where the teams that are at the top still have stuff to play for at the end of the year because playoff seeding matters. And the teams in the middle are still in it late in the season. So they're still gunning for wins, even in, week 16 and week 17. And only a few teams are in, let's play, let's line things up for next year mode until maybe week 17. And you know what? It works. It just, the whole system works.
It works pretty good.
It keeps fans involved.
It works pretty good.
Yep. I mean, I know that.
Okay. I'm cutting you off.
I was going to say, I know that our NFL and people in this country don't tend to watch non-American sports. But if you think about like what goes on in like soccer in Europe, where there isn't really a playoff system, it's who has the most wins and losses and ties and stuff at the end of the year.
Yeah, right.
A lot of times everything is locked up weeks and weeks early. And then what are those games for? If you've locked up, that spot at the top, you're done. Or if you have no hope of getting up into because there's usually money involved if you can finish sixth because that qualifies you for some tournament or whatever.
I'm cutting you off because we're not talking about European soccer anymore.
No, but I'm just saying the NFL system works.
Yes,
that's my point. Is it works? It does. It makes every game matter, and that's all we care. And you're right. I'm rambling. Blah 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 blah.
So here's what we're gonna do.
We're gonna talk more about European soccer.
Our next show.
That's good because I don't really know much about
it. We're switching over to our draft mode show, and we're going defensive tackles. Next week, we're going to be talking about playoff races. So we leave the regular season behind. We're going to start integrating some of the teams that are out of the playoffs. We're going to start transitioning into talking about team needs as well as we get into the transition into the off season where we talk about what team salary caps are, what their team needs are, what free agency looks like. We're going to talk about, the combine and the Senior Bowl, and we'll have all of those evaluations. We'll ramp up all the way through free agency and get everybody to the draft. So that's going to be great. So follow along. You can follow Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. I'm at Alvstad NFL. The show is at PF_playbook and playbook, Pro Football Playbook.co is the website. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform and our YouTube channel, and subscribe, please. So until next time, take care, guys. Thanks for listening to the Pro Football Playbook Podcast. Follow Keith at Myers NFL. Bill is at Alvstad NFL. The show is at PF_playbook. Listen and subscribe on your favorite podcast app or YouTube and at our website, profootballplaybook.co.